Well, good morning, everybody. We're still waiting on a couple of board members to join.
Can I ask an unrelated question?
Sure.
I have a bill from the city that says Tyler Enterprise Financial Conversion. Do those boards mean anything to you? I get parking tickets and water bills normally. I don't know who Tyler Enterprise is.
That's our new ERP software. So billing would be included in that software package. Is it like a water bill?
Maybe it's for a roll-off dumpster.
It very well could be if you ordered one.
Yeah.
Or if you've, I guess, used one recently. But that is our like financial software now.
So it's just like a thing like the field didn't fill in right.
That's possible.
Because it says the description is that. I bet it's that dumpster.
Morning, everybody.
I just figured you'd know.
Yeah, we did recently convert. And so January 1 was our go live date. So we're still, as you can imagine, working out some of the bugs. But yeah, Mandy, if you want.
No, I know that's all. It was just curiosity. I never pay paper bills, so it's not a big deal.
Cool.
Like,
all right.
it'll have to get weirder before then.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about it. Like I barely open paper mail.
I hear you.
I'm just sitting here at my desk and saw it.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chris.
Do we have a quorum with us for? They give us a quorum?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay. Fantastic. All right, I suppose I'll call the meeting of the Special Alcohol Funding Advisory Board to order at 9:03. We need to take like a roll call for quorum.
No.
All right. Fantastic.
We got it.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks everybody for making time on kind of short notice. I suppose that was probably me dragging my feet of checking my Gmail account. But I appreciate staff getting this agenda order and staff putting together these agreements for us to review and the plan to review. So the first agenda item is just the approval of the January 6, 2023 meeting minutes. Does anybody have any changes or any discussion about the minutes?
Your name is not Chris Cobart.
Could be.
Yeah, we can fix that typo.
Oh yeah, I see that. Thanks, Mandy. You care about my name more than I do, apparently.
I kind of like Cobart though. I think it's fun.
All right. So other than the changing of my name, do we have any other changes or discussion? I'll make a motion to approve. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes with the change of my last name.
I so approve. I mean, I move that we approve the minutes.
Motion. Do we have a second?
I will second the motion to approve the minutes with an H swapped in your name there.
Perfect. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And none. Motion passes for the approval of the minutes. Okay, on to the next agenda item. Do we need to do public comment first on this, or do we come to the committee first for discussion and then open that up to open these up to public comment?
That's correct, Chris. The board can discuss and then open it up for public comment.
Okay. So what we're going for first agenda item, we're going to review the special alcohol fund agreements with Lawrence Community Shelter, Willow Domestic Violence, Bert Nash, and Sexual Trauma Care Center. One thing and maybe this isn't necessary to discuss, but I think setting some ground rules of I don't think we're debating the allocation of the funds or who these funds are going to. It's more compliance of, are the agreements the way we want them set? Are they in accordance with the ordinances? Not even legality of things. We've beat that to death. We have a letter from the city as their position on that. So more just, are these saying what we want them to say and holding them accountable for the work that we want them to be doing in this area with these funds. So with that said, I'd open that up to the committee and if any discussion or comments as it relates to the memo or the agreements that we have in front of us.
Daniel B. Smith. The only thing that immediately comes to mind is something we've touched on before, and that's just looking at the fact that there is that 216,042 rollover from 2022. I feel like that has caught our attention in the past. That last year, the amount that was allocated specifically for the city's programming ended up only really spending, I think, 3/4 of the funds that are allocated there. And I think we all expressed a little bit of concern that, when there's so much need in the community, the fact that a decent chunk of that funding is not actually ending up going to the community, being utilized, does communicate a certain level of potential lack of capacity to do as much work as is needed. None of us necessarily argued, as far as I remember, against the actual amount, but the rollover was. I'm glad to see the funding is rolling over here, but the fact that there was so much unspent last year was something that previously raised some concern. So I just wanted to bring that back, touch on that again. Otherwise, there's nothing else that immediately jumps out at me.
This is Chris Court. So I think that's an excellent point. So Brandon, on the ones that were kind of recommending that we hold as contingency, was that based off of a formula, or what was the 121,361 kind of held back of the million? How did we determine that to be the number of hold back?
This is Danny. I can speak to that.
Danny, sorry about that. I didn't realize you were on. I appreciate
all
that.
Good. Yeah, I'm sneaky in here. No, the amount remaining was after we went through the activities that were kind of meeting what the city commission asked us to do. I think as everyone knows, we have in this space where we're working, there are things that are unanticipated that come up. I can point to the support site in North Lawrence, being one of those. And this is a way to have those funds available as those types of activities come up that we need to be able to respond to. So it wasn't a formula. It was after we had gone through what the requests from the agencies were, that this is what the remainder was.
So the 121, Danny, this is Mandy Enfield. So the 121, that's money that will be used for outreach, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, education, outreach, whatever, versus like internal operations.
That's tough to say at this moment. I mean, our intention would be for it to go towards operations of programming. If you're asking if it's going to some staff salary or anything like that, that would not be the intention of those funds. It would be for program operations.
Okay. Because it's a big chunk of money to to sort of have up in the air. I really appreciate this information because I think that's one of our struggles that we've had for a long time is the money being used for its, as intended. So I appreciate seeing, like the direct alignment between where the money is going and how that is serving, homelessness, which we align with, alcohol and drug abuse treatment and interventions. But that 121 is kind of unknown. And it's been a while since I've gone over the ordinances and stuff, but I'm pretty sure that the city department use is specific to the city manager's office portion of the funds and then the Parks and Rec. So I would like to see those funds being used for programming and direct services and not light bills and salaries.
Absolutely. And we can certainly provide an accounting in your upcoming meetings of the expenditures out of this fund. So you guys do have a good idea of where those funds have gone.
Any other members have comment or questions on what's been presented? I do, so I want to give everybody a opportunity before I ask my questions.
Thanks, Chris. D.W. Smith. I think I'll just kind of conclude. Let's circle back to what I was talking about and say that I appreciate the staff input and that I am continually impressed with city staff's willingness to admit when, they are kind of playing catch up or have, there's room for improvement. And I think that's something that a lot of people in the community have expressed that around the issue of homelessness. The city has done a lot of work and not everything has gone super smoothly. And I always really appreciate that the city is willing to say that. And I think that striving towards expending as much funding as we have for that programming each year to make the most positive impact is great. And even though I might have pointed out the unspent amount and the rollover from the previous year, I think that I'm hopeful that won't be the case this year. So I'll let Chris Cobart say what he wants to say now.
Dorothy or Kim, do either one of you have anything, questions or comments on the letter or the agreements?
Yeah, the others have answered the question that I had in my head, so we were thinking alike, I think.
This is Kim Johnson. And so the only question I had as I was looking through and I'm sorry I'm late, I had a computer die, and so I had to start fresh with a brand new computer, who obviously didn't know who I was. But I was looking over the Bert Nash agreement, and it talks about staff aligned to do this, that, and the other. Are those actual operations in place?
I have invited Matthew Falk to be here. I'm going to see if maybe he could speak to that.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you. Because obviously it's one of those things that the reason I ask is this is why they're getting FQHC money, right? To fulfill these same needs that they're getting alcohol tax money to fulfill. So it's like, how are you differentiating, and are these positions filled? Because that should be transparent if you're getting money from, our pockets, if you will.
Sure. This is Matthew Falk, Director of Housing with the Bert Nash Community Mental Health Center. So the homeless outreach program that is funded predominantly through this funding stream does not have any kind of other duplicates within CCBHC, the community mental health system. So we are not getting money to stand up these positions or to support these positions. So the team that we have is comprised of 10 members. 6 of those staff are supported by the city. 2 of those staff are what are called PATH funded, which is a long time, SAMHSA homeless outreach grant that we've had since I think 2001. And then 2 of those positions are funded through a different SAMHSA grant that actually terminates this summer. It was a 2-year grant that we got starting 2 years ago. But there are no other funds that would normally be, regular like programming supported by normal, community mental health services. This team is designed to work with anyone, including folks who are not mental health consumers. So, a significant number of people that we serve with these dollars are people who are not Bert Nash clients. They're not receiving services from us in the sense of a clinical service that we would like bill their Medicaid or their insurance for and get reimbursement for. So a big intention of this funding and for us is that we therefore gain the capacity to do that. Because typically we would be serving clients who come to us for mental health care and who are entering into a clinical relationship with us for therapy, medication services, groups, clinical case management, et cetera. And, homeless outreach or experiencing homelessness doesn't necessarily mean you have a mental health issue. So that's kind of a big chunk of what we do with that team. We do provide services to folks who are mental health consumers and who are also homeless. We spread the whole gap, but again, a lot of those folks don't have insurance and they don't have any form of medical payment source in their life. So.
Correct. So to follow up, again, Kim Johnson. So to follow up on that is, you stated you're going to have these specific staff providing these specific services. Are those in operation currently?
Yes. So the homeless outreach team has existed for, though, as I mentioned, we've had the PATH portion of the team since 2001. The city funded portion of the team started in 2006, and we've grown it over time. So last year we actually expanded it significantly from 4 to 10. All of those positions have been filled. All of those staff members are in place, and we are providing services as we outlined. Some of that is kind of on the fly. For example, as the city, our agreement with the city is that we will help support, whatever projects they may have going. So, for example, the winter shelter project is something we stepped in to help with.
Do you mind if I interrupt?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm aware of all of that, and I'm not asking you to kind of restate what you guys do. I'm really just looking at answers to my specific questions, which are, you say that you have staff that are reserving 3-hour blocks of time to operate a walk-in clinic for the homeless. And I am asking, are you currently doing that?
Yes.
Thank you.
We've been doing that for almost 10 years.
And that's fine. If you've been doing it for 10 years and you were already able to fund those staff, then why was that support written into this grant that you needed funding for staff to do that?
This money, the city money, is the funding that we've been using for 10 years to support that function.
Okay, so this is just reiterating what you're already doing.
Yes.
Which goes back to kind of, I guess, my overall question about the alcohol tax, because isn't the end goal is that individuals would become, be able to make projects sustainable and not have to, go back through, because there's other services that are in Lawrence that did not receive funding, and they were forced to find ways to be able to sustain it. So I guess, just looking this over, that's why I was curious about those questions. It says that you guys are going to do these things, and if you've already been doing these things, as a percent of this, did we fund for more people, or did we just fund the existing people? It sounds like we just funded the existing, right?
Yeah, we funded the existing people.
Okay.
And this has nothing to do with our program. City is there, and they have the challenge of making a decision on what funds to spend and where. Just as a community-wide issue, when you look at the system of services, there is no way to sustain services for folks who have no payer source or who have no income.
Yeah, I'm
otherwise to
aware
pay.
of that. Yeah, I'm aware of that. One follow-up question with that. Do you guys actually track how many people come through your door?
Yeah, well, yes, we track how many people that we provide a service to. There is kind of a,
So
I
like
guess,
how many people you help to obtain an ID, a social security
Yes.
card, birth certificate. So
yes.
you could say, Kim, in 2022, we helped 79 people.
Yes, I can tell you in 2022, we helped well over 300 people.
Yeah, because that's really what it's about, right? It's being able to justify why you continue to get the money.
We provide a quarterly report to the city and the county of those statistics and data.
Yeah.
And I would be
Yeah.
happy to share those with this group.
No, I just, I think that some of the questions we had before around Bert Nash being the main entity receiving this funding was, how can you justify that, right? Because
Sure.
ideally, if you're receiving the main funding in 2021, you did not receive all of the main funding, but in 2022 you did. So your numbers would maybe jump a little bit, right? Am I thinking of that wrong,
This is
Chris? I see your face.
I don't think that that's necessarily true. I mean, all not-for-profits have a puzzle that they have to put together in terms of how they're going to fund their organization. And sometimes funding comes up for existing programs that they can shift operational dollars, unrestricted funds to operations, and be able to utilize these grant funds to sustain the operations that they have. So while they may get more funding from an existing funder, doesn't necessarily mean they're increasing the capacity that not-for-profit has. They're just being able to shift some dollars that they've had to raise in other ways to this one, or maybe they lose a grant, one other grant that was helping fund that part of that program. So we're not increasing more capacity. We're just trying to keep the puzzle pieces all working to continue to operate the organization. Now, if we're saying in the grant application that we're going to increase staff, we're going to increase our numbers, then yeah, I think there's an expectation that we see that with increased funding. But I don't think we can just say that because they got increased funding, we should expect higher numbers.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. Yeah. I was in the nonprofit world for a while with Healthcare Access, 3 years as a grant manager. And I completely understand where you're coming from. I think it was just in my mind, I'm still trying to justify that, the funding from last year, just to looking at the metrics and, numbers sometimes makes my brain feel better. So, but anyway, yeah, thank you for answering some of those questions, Matthew. I appreciate it. Chris, I will hand over to you.
I just want to add one thing on that. I think it's important to note, just for context, historically, these alcohol tax funds, there was a big chunk that went to fund the RAP program, right? So then when the funds were shifted towards homelessness, Bert Nash lost those RAP funds, but got an increase in funding for homelessness outreach stuff. So I imagine funds are being shifted to cover that hole for RAP, but I haven't been following that saga and if that prevention work is being funded. But it is another example of prioritizing these funds for direct and emergency services versus, money on the front end, prevention dollars like we used to.
So this is Chris Gohart. A couple of the things I have is pretty consistent throughout. And we as a committee have not disputed the value of utilizing these funds from homelessness, but the ordinance is pretty clear as it relates to what these funds, this 1/3 of special alcohol funds, should be utilized for. And we know the direct correlation between homelessness and a lot of times with the substance abuse. But in the memo that we have, we only speak to those experiencing homelessness, and I wonder that if we need to be more explicit as to that we as a city as a governing board are making that direct connection that we've made the determination that in 2G of Ordinance 33, that these other programs that do help with, I can see it, that any program activity that the governing body determines to seek to discourage, prevent, intervene, address issues related to alcohol and drug abuse, that our city letter speaks to that as that, yes, we're saying that homelessness does check this box as we've determined that to be. And I think even if we look at the beginning of just section 2 at the end, where it says, from time to time, the governing body from time to time can determine in its best interest of the public that it funds one or more of these. So I think that the letter and even the agreements should speak more to how what we've determined as a governing body is still solving these without just saying homelessness. And yes, we all know that does have a direct correlation, but I think that we need to be explicit when we look back on this and we're trying to recreate like what did happen. We've contemplated that in these letters that we're having these organizations sign, that your program does have a direct correlation to this, or the programs that you're having has some impact on what this 1/3 funds is being utilized for. And I think that was really all I had, was the letter should say something in the agreements for both, because it looked like we had three of the agreements were the same, but Willow's was slightly different, because I think it was still more the true special alcohol funding, historic funding usage, and it wasn't really speaking to homelessness at all. So that was kind of the only thing I had with this, is probably being more direct in our language that we are homelessness and has a direct correlation with 2G that we have in Ordinance 33. Mm-hmm.
Chris, if we may, maybe just a comment about the Willow program funding. Danny, do you want to kind of just explain just high level the ordinance that
You're talking about Care Center.
Care Center? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Care Center is the one that's a little bit different.
I'm sorry.
From.
Yeah,
No, that is okay. Yeah, no, that is by ordinance for the safe bar training. So yes, that absolutely falls in line with what the previous allocation types have been. So, on your point about tying it to the money to your ordinance, we can definitely look at putting a cover sheet to this, a communication to the agreement packet that states kind of exactly what you've laid out here and how it aligns with the ordinance and the work that we're doing. Well,
I don't know that I would want. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. You finish.
I was done. It's okay.
Okay. I appreciate that, and this is Chris Carr, but I think I would rather it be in the agreement itself, because while we've made the determination, we do want these organizations to adhere to that principle as they're applying these funds to their program and these usage of these funds.
Okay.
Because if it's just a letter, we're just kind of giving guidelines, and it's not really, the agreement would override just the cover letter of what those funds are being utilized for. And I don't doubt that the funds that they're using would be used, or that their program is designed for that. But I do think that the agreements themselves need to have that language.
Okay. I will work with our legal department and see about adding an exhibit and then some verbiage in the agreement itself that ties back to the exhibit being likely the ordinance for special alcohol funding board. So
I really like that, Chris. I think that is important. I think for 2 years we've worked on trying to align the use of the funds with the ordinance, and I don't see any reason why it's not happened. Like we can just say, like the city can just say in the agreements that the funds are being used for what they're supposed to be used for. It seems easy.
Mm-hmm. I think that's all that was really all I had. It was just that being consistent throughout. So if anybody has any questions, comments on that, or do we just need to, approve just at a direction of staff to go back and do that? Or Brandon, what's the procedure here for like that?
Well, I think we have useful feedback. We weren't really
Not looking for approval for us
for like approval of the board, but it's kind of like a receive and provide feedback. So I don't think a formal motion is needed, but and Danny, I think you've got a good idea about how to incorporate that ordinance language into the agreements. So
okay. So if the committee has no further comments or questions on that, I'd say we would open this up to public comment. And I got to read this too for public comment.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
Okay. All right. So each person will be limited to 3 minutes for public comment. Members of the public may provide public comment on multiple agenda items. General public comment on these items or issues are not scheduled on the agenda, may be made after a business. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for general comment. But at this point, do we have any general comment, whether on site or via Zoom?
There is nobody in person here. And we do have some representatives from our partner agencies on, but I don't know if they wish to provide comment.
Okay. Well, hearing none, I'd say we need to make a motion to close public comment.
No.
Okay. Well, then we'll close public comment. This isn't an agenda item, but I would wonder if do we need to have a future meetings discussion or just do an adjournment here?
We should share the retreat conversation with the group, right?
Yeah, I think that sounds fantastic. Brandon, would you put you on the spot here about maybe?
Sure. No, I was kind of anticipating that. Yeah. So for the other board members, I met with Mandy and Chris. It's been about a month ago, or maybe a little bit longer. And this is following up on the conversation in the last board meeting about conducting a planning retreat for the board, or a goal setting retreat. They gave me some good feedback on expectations. We left that meeting with me committing to coordinate with a third-party facilitator to help facilitate the board's retreat. I can update you and let you know we now do have a couple of facilitation teams under contract on an on-call basis. That was a procurement process that we've been running for the last couple of months, and it's come to a close. So now we do have a contract, and have actually started engaging them on a couple of internal retreats that we're working on. So I think we're at a point now where we can work with them on a scope and fee for a planning retreat for the board, if that's still the desire to go forward with that, and maybe come back. I would suggest maybe mid next month with a presentation of that scope of work and present it to the board to see if that's the direction you want to move forward with. Chris, you are on.
Chris, do you want to go?
I was just going to say, does anybody have any questions or comments related to that?
My question is timeline-wise, Brandon, how does that align with that committee?
Yeah, Chris, do you want to give an update on that? I think Daniel, you're also on that committee, aren't you? So,
Dan, do you want to comment? You're better a communicator than I am. So,
Daniel B. Smith. Yeah, I was wondering if we might talk about the committee at some point during this meeting. I think that the timeline for the committee is Obviously, it's a pretty quick process. I mean, there's only a limited number of meetings left, but I think that it would still be useful for us to meet and go over the specific charge of this body, and especially since it's going to be really useful for the committee to have a really clear understanding of what role we see ourselves playing within the city, so that when we're looking at all the other boards and committees, we can really figure out how that fits together. So I think that honestly, we should move forward with the retreat and not change our plans too much based on speculation on how the committee is going to unfold, especially since I think that once we start seeing more public engagement around the committee, it's really impossible to know what the timeline is going to actually end up being. So, Chris, I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, our charge in the ordinance by the governing board was 4 months from the initial first meeting. But there was also as with all good agreements, some flexibility as it relates to that date. So 4 months, I think, was mid-May. I think it was second or third week of May was when the recommendations were supposed to be provided to the city commission. And the way we're currently starting, we're going to be in that range. We're not going to be earlier than that. I'll say that. So,
Can I ask a question about the committee? Are they asking for input from each committee about what decisions you make, or?
Well, we did a questionnaire at the very beginning of the process. This is Chris Clark. We did a questionnaire at the very beginning of the process to all existing city board members and city committee board chairs, and also city staff as to what they liked and disliked and all about the current city boards. There will be a public event as it relates to kind of the draft and of what we've come to a proposal for before it goes to the city commission for final approval. So we'll do a public event, and then we'll take it back after taking feedback on what we're proposing, make whatever tweaks we might have related to it, if any, and then do a final proposal to city commission.
So timeline wise, are we talking about having a conversation about the retreat in a couple weeks, or are we talking about having the retreat in a couple weeks?
Well, my suggestion would be to for Mandy, Chris, and I to meet with this facilitator and work with them on a scope of work. So, set expectations for the retreat and kind of outline, an agenda and what it would entail. Usually with a planning retreat, there's going to be between the facilitator and each board member some preliminary work, whether that's through a survey, questionnaire, or one-on-one meetings, or two-on-one type meetings. We don't have to go into that depth, but I think that's something that probably the three of us can talk with the facilitator about. Come up with a proposal, scope of work, agenda, and then bring it back to the full board for a meeting. The alternative approach would be that just maybe the three of us just meet and prepare that scope of work and just call the next meeting of the board the planning retreat.
Okay, I'm concerned because it's essentially April, and if this is all wrapping up mid-May, I'd like to move a little quicker so it's not just performative and it's actually generating content that can help the committee with their recommendations. Am I on the right track with that, or am I missing the point of the committee?
Daniel B. Smith, I would certainly say that if we could meet and retreat sooner, I do think that it would help inform the committee. So I mean, if that's possible, I'm certainly willing to make time for it. I think it's probably has more to do with the facilitator and some of those logistics, but it's certainly a good aspiration. I think that if we end up meeting closer to sort of the May conclusion of the committees activities, I still think it will be valuable, but I would lean towards sooner rather than later. The one other thing I'll say in relation to the committee is that I think it's beneficial. Chris and I are both on there, and so we have those discussions. I think it could be beneficial for other people who are on this body to, you don't have to review the entire video. I know it's long and you have lots going on, but just to kind of be aware of sort of the conversation that's happening, and that, this body has really been sort of identified as being in alignment with some of the other bodies that also do compliance around fiscal stewardship. And so just it's nice to know kind of like what neighborhood this board lives in as far as the other boards and committees that exist, when we're looking at all of the roles and responsibilities of existing boards and committees, and how and where those responsibilities might land. We have a few other bodies that also do sort of fiscal stewardship, compliance style work, and if there's going to be any rearrangement of responsibilities, it would most likely be among those similar bodies. So if you want to review the videos, you can I believe they're available for your viewing pleasure. But I think that's one thing that people on this board could proactively do to be better situated to have some of those conversations. But yeah, in general, Mandy, I do agree that the sooner we could do a retreat, that would be great, but I don't think it's 100% required, but just heavily beneficial.
Cool.
What would be a
so-
realistic timeline if we wanted to do an earlier retreat? What's a realistic timeline with the other responsibilities and obligations of city staff and the facilitator?
I think honestly, since we'll be engaging a facilitator, the impact workload for staff is going to be relatively minimal. Just making sure to match the board with the facilitator, and then I would say it's really a matter of how quickly the facilitator can schedule time that works for the board, all the board members, and find that mutual date to get together. So what I would suggest is Mandy, Chris, and I get a meeting within probably the next week with the facilitator and have that conversation. I can update the board members, following that meeting on a timeline by email, and Mandy, Chris, and I can kind of have the conversation about should the board get together again prior to the retreat and review a scope of work, or should we just go forward? It seems to me like there's enough trust among the board members to kind of delegate that work to Mandy and Chris, and we can take it from here.
Do we want to, as a committee, do we want to have that discussion at this point? Would you committee members like to see that agreement prior, or do you want us in the idea of kind of doing this in a swift fashion to ensure that we're getting this done, and trying to do the right thing, that Mandy and I put something together and then get it something on the agenda or on our calendars for an actual retreat?
I think doing it quickly would be a good idea. Just hopefully not a waste of time, but a good idea.
This is Chris. I would second what Dan had said. Nothing is definitive at this point with the committee of committees. And if we look at this in a broad sense and not just what we've historically done and what our historical charge has been, but truly looking at, what the strategic plan is in whole, and how could you envision the role of this committee absorbing or being part of something. It doesn't have to maintain this name, but responsibilities could expand into a new board that does a lot of the similar things that we currently do, but maybe takes on some more responsibilities that other boards may have been doing, that shifting responsibilities, you know.
Dean B. Smith, one last little detail that I will mention is that with what we're looking at in the committee, there's also just like some ground level new proposed, you know, organizational aspects to all the boards and committees, kind of doing some standardization and setting some new ground rules. And one of those, and maybe this is already a rule, I don't think it is, but one of the rules that being considered would limit individual participation to one municipal board or committee. So that would so that is something to keep in mind for and since I'm obviously on this board, but I'm on the committee as you know, primarily because I am a chair of another board. That is something to consider, because that I believe is a change. We haven't talked too much about it in the committee, or at least we didn't. Maybe you talked about it at the last one. I had to leave early to go to my other committee, but that is something as far as membership and things that could change. I mean, I am on multiple, so that is just something to keep in mind.
And does the committee have like public comment in those meetings? Are those open meetings?
B. Smith, there's no public comment in the committee meetings. They are, you can come in, you can certainly come and hang out, but there's no point at which the public is.
I'm not allowed to talk.
At the public event, for sure.
Ah, okay, cool. I get it on my calendar. So in the spirit of getting our retreat done in April, I think would be a good goal. Could we, Brandon, sort of run some tasks concurrently? I don't remember the difference between those two words, but like maybe get a doodle poll out to the group for like a day that works for everybody for the retreat. While at the same time we're working on a conversation with the facilitator, so then we can just go straight to getting an invitation out and an update to the group.
We can do that. These consultants do have other clients and other projects that they're balancing. So, I think we would need to just make sure that whatever date works for the board also works for the facilitator.
Naturally. We can shoot for the stars though.
Yeah.
April.
Yeah, I'm happy to coordinate a message. It'll probably come from Melody Henning in our office, and try to coordinate and find a couple of options for dates that work for the board. Are we still thinking half a day? Like a 4-hour chunk?
I like three.
Yeah.
I feel like if we hit 4, you got to feed us lunch or something. But if we do 3, we can get by with just some snacks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dean B. Smith, sorry to interrupt, but I did want to issue a clarification. Since I had to leave the committee meeting, the last committee meeting before the meeting adjourned, apparently I've been updated. Apparently there was discussion about increasing the limit to 2 boards per individual. I just wanted to have it on record that is seemingly what consensus was.
That's good. That makes, because that seems like we're reducing people's opportunity for public engagement, and that does not serve the strategic plan.
So yeah, I just wanted to, I don't want to be out here misinforming y'all. So, and thank you.
The consensus was we couldn't, I mean, us all being on the committee of committees kind of breaks that rule. You would have to get a whole new set of people to do the committee of committees. If we did only one.
That gave me some feelings.
But if you are going to watch the last one, it was 3.5 hours, so buckle up.
I don't have a job, it's fine.
Commit the time. Wait, we'll have to, I'll Uber eat you some food, Mandy, because it's over 3.
Thanks. I want Chipotle.
All right. So if we have no further discussion, Brandon and Danny, you feel good about direction, or that we provide enough direction, or what we need to have? Okay. So,
yes, thank you.
We'll keep an eye out for the Google the doodle poll, and then Mandy and I will work towards kind of an agenda for the retreat. And Dan, didn't you guys just do your retreat for the Cultural Arts Commission? Did you guys do half day? How long did you do that one?
DLB Smith. So we had a meeting in January, which is sort of traditionally the retreat meeting. It was not very retreat like. We did have another retreat midway through last year, which was a half day in a separate location with a wildly different agenda. So and that was really successful. So I'd kind of point to that as being our actual retreat. And yeah, it was a half. It was an especially long meeting.
Right. All right. So 3 hours would kind of be our target. Seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if no one has anything further for the good of the committee, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
DLB Smith. Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead. No, you're fine. I will. DLB Smith. I will second after Mandy's motion. I also want to, as always, thank everybody, including staff, and congratulate all of the fantastic organizations on their continued support.
That's nice, Dan. Thank you. I move to adjourn the meeting. Mandy and Field.
We have a motion and a second. Do we all in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
4 ayes, 5 ayes, I guess, for me. So any opposed? Seeing none, we make a motion to we are officially adjourned.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.